And now let's welcome Bayo Tebi, our newspaper reviewer. Bayo, welcome.
Thank you, Kiriam. Good morning. Good morning, Kingsley. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Bayo.
All the New Year revelers are back. Kiriam came in on Monday.
That's great.
Good morning, Nigeria.
That's right.
Okay.
Kiriam, you want to kick off?
Yes. Okay. Let's start with the New Telegraph newspaper. CBN, federal government spent 1.02 trillion naira on debt servicing in Q3 of 2021. Banks borrowed 503.69 billion in October. Finally, federal government lifts ban on Twitter. That's on page 25. A suit seeking to stop AGF from arresting, extraditing Abba Kyari stalled. That's on page 6. APC National Convention. Our February date stands, says Akpan Uduodehe. That's on page 3. Insists party still consulting. Dismisses June date as fake news. All that on page 3. 18 killed. Houses burnt as herders launch fresh attack on Plateau. Oil ownership. Debanjo counters. Obasanjo says oil belongs to Niger Delta region. That's on page 4. COVID-19 has not reached endemic status. That's according to the WHO. And continuing our review this morning, let's get to Al Jazeera. Lead story on Al Jazeera. Senate to cut down on borrowings with 4 riders. Revenue generation, collection, remittance way out, says Senate President. Laments low revenue to GDP ratio. Experts fear Nigeria could fall into another round of debt trap. Debt servicing major burden of most African countries. All that on page 7. No going back on February convention, says APC. It's on page 28 of Al Jazeera. Buhari salutes Ahmad Lawan at 63. It's on page 31. IBB mourns Chuo Kongu, says he was exceptionally brilliant. That's on page 6. Medical doctor, that's at the bottom of the Al Jazeera newspaper. There are some stories there. Medical doctor dies of Lassa fever in Benue. It's on page 12. 4 killed in Delta church collapse. Page 2. 7 months after federal government leaves Twitter suspension. 7 months after federal government leaves Twitter suspension. Page 6. Minister, fire me, others mourn Alao Akala. That's on page 10. Kinsley.
That's right. You also have that story on Alao Akala on the front page of the Nation newspaper, and that's above the nameplate. Ex-Governor Alao Akala found dead in his bathroom. And the writer, which is also another obituary, ex-minister Okongu dies at 87. Both stories you'll find in greater detail on page 29. Man kills own 3 kids, keeps bodies in freezer. And hearing in suit against Kyari's extradition deferred. Now, below the nameplate, 2 die of Lassa fever in Kaduna. Nasarawa challenges investors on par. Equities gained 981 billion naira in 6 days. Investors earned 8.7 trillion naira since 2020. Now, the late story comes with a double-decker headline, says bandits kill 51, burn houses in attacks on communities. Many feared kidnapped on Kaduna-Abuja highway. Defense minister in Zamfara. President orders sustained military onslaught. Lawan, Nigerians want action, not excuses. Federal government lifts Twitter ban with conditions. And right at the foot of the front page, EFCC arrests Momfa over alleged 6 billion naira fraud, and government targets paperless system. Bayo.
Thank you, Kingsley. Let's start with the news about deaths. We've lost former Minister Chuo Kongu and also the former governor of Oyo State, Christopher Alao Akala. Alao Akala was governor of Oyo State between 2007 and 11, and by some strange coincidence, he died exactly the day he was 16. It was 16 years after he was sworn in as governor. President Muhammad Buhari has commiserated with the family, the government, and people of Oyo State. Governor Sheyi Makinde has ordered flags to fly at half-mast across Oyo State as a mark of honor for a man he described as who took development in Oyo State to other zones outside Ibadan. Development usually are centripetal around state capitals, and he was able to devolve that to the other zones. Outside his death is coming barely a month after the death of the Shah of Ogbomoso. There are increasing concerns about terrorist bandits reported killing people in Niger and Plateau. 34 persons are reported to have been killed in 2 communities in Niger State, while 17 others were killed at Ancha in Bassa local government of Plateau State. But there is a report that Kingsley read about a suspected kidnapping along Kaduna-Birnin-Gwari highway. Special forces of the Nigerian Air Force has rescued 26 kidnapped victims. This was along the Kaduna-Birnin-Gwari highway. The spokesman for the Nigerian Air Force, Edward Gakwe, says that the special forces came across 5 abandoned vehicles with their doors ajar, and that was a signal to them that persons have been forcefully taken out of vehicle. So they extended their intrusion about 3 kilometers into the bushes. First, 3 kidnapped victims who saw them came out from their hiding. Later on, a further search left to 4 different groups of kidnapped victims, and that was how they rescued 26 victims. The 3 groups of the terrorist bandit group has actually attacked various vehicles on the highway, and they have now been moved to 461 Nigeria Air Force medical examination for medical examination. The federal government has lifted the suspension imposed on the operation of the block site Twitter in Nigeria, and it took effect from midnight of today. The platform, midnight of yesterday, last midnight, the platform was suspended for about 7 months ago due to what was described as unceasing use of the platform by some unscrupulous element for subversive and criminal elements. It was also alleged that the platform was used for propagating fake news as well as portraying Nigerians along tribal and religious lines. The announcement was made by the Director General of the Nigeria Agency for Technology Development, NIDA, Kashifu Abdullahi, and he was chairman of the technical committee of Nigeria and Twitter engagement. President has already approved a memo of lifting the suspension. Twitter, for now, has agreed to certain terms, and they include to meet all conditions set by the federal government. Others are Twitter is to establish a legal entity in Nigeria, register with Corporate Affairs Commission, and also appoint a country representative. Twitter has also agreed to comply with applicable tax obligations. The lifting of the suspension is described as a new chapter in global digital diplomacy. Senior civil servants and pensioners are reported to have kicked against the plan by the federal government to borrow about $1.5 billion, an equivalent of 620 billion naira from the pension fund. The federal government plans to source this $1.5 million for the fund to support its proposed 7.173 trillion investment in transport infrastructure in the next 5 years. The Association of Senior Civil Servants have described the idea as not acceptable. Association President Tommy Okon is reported to have said in the Punch that even presently, some pensioners are even complaining about delay in certain payments, and still there is this talk to borrow from pension fund. It's apparent that there will be no fund to pay pensioners. The union has advised government against such a proposal to loan from the pension fund, as no union will accept that. The National Union of Pensioners also have lended their voice. They advise government to be very careful. Information officer of the Nigeria Pensions Union said borrowing pension fund might lead to the retirees being subjected to unnecessary delay and agony. Well, there's some good news from the Central Bank. Central Bank of Nigeria has forecast Nigeria's gross domestic product for 2022 to about 3.2%. This is the economic outlook presented by the Central Bank Governor, Godwin Emefiele. However, the World Bank has forecasted a growth of 2.5% for Nigeria for 2022 and also for 2.8% for the year 2023. The Central Bank says its focus is on fast-tracking the growth above historic levels, and this is because there are now serious impetuses to improve on the rate economic activities to the pre-pandemic levels. The World Bank says that recently, recovery from pandemic around the world generally had led to loss of employment, inflation, and as well as food prices that have gone out skyrocketed. The World Bank is saying that redressing this will be very slow, and therefore the development of growth will be slow generally. But it's not the first time that the Central Bank has forecasted, and the IMF and the World Bank had differed, and later on, the two of the World Bank and IMF have come to agree with the forecast by the Central Bank and the Nigerian, as far as the Nigerian economy is concerned.
Well, as you said, Bayo, these are forecasts. They're not cast in stone. Exactly. The dynamics of the economy could change, and ultimately the numbers will also be different. In a sense, forecasts are usually advisory. If you look at the Nigerian national budget for this year, formerly referred to as the Appropriation Act, our forecast for economic growth is not 2.5. It's just more ambitious than that. But the key thing, of course, is to keep working at the economy. And one thing that we appear not to have been able to achieve in recent years has been to surpass our population growth. The rate at which our population is galloping is one that continues to pose a challenge. And if your economic performance trails your population growth, then you'll be having the kinds of social and economic challenges. And
inability to have a census, is also contributing, to all these, challenges in the economic sphere. Because a country that doesn't know exactly its population, I wonder how the budgeting and planning and all of that, will take care of the population. It's entirely something that we need to work on. Let's have a population census and be able to know how many we are as a nation, and be able to plan better, because I know that most nations plan based on their population.
Without an accurate census, all plans will be based on conjectures,
forecasting and gambling into challenges and dynamics of the economy.
Barely a few days after ECOWAS heads of governments and heads of state have insisted that the military junta in Mali should hand over, pursue process of handing over from February, and has refused for them to extend it to the end of the year. There's an officer, a military officer, Lieutenant Colonel Emmanuel Zokagana, has been arrested in Burkina Faso for attempting to stage a coup. That will have been the fourth coup attempt in the sub-Saharan
Sub-Saharan Africa. Well, Maya, as you know, there are a number of issues that we can begin to discuss and have conversations around in terms of the items as they are occurring. Unfortunately, we also have a number of obituaries of very prominent persons. We mentioned Ernest Shonekan, Chief Ernest Shonekan, who was the head of the interim national government on the heels of the June 12 crisis. But before then, of course, he had been the head of the Transitional Council from January 1993. He, of course, was part of the arrangements to ensure that there was ultimately transition to civilian rule by August 27th of 1993. Unfortunately, all of that came apart, and Shonekan, of course, left office after he was ousted on account of what was said to have been a court judgment that his appointment, and therefore that of the ING, that was illegal. And for a while, no one could refer to him as a former head of state, because he played that role as head of interim national government, nor could he attend the Council of State. But General Sani Abacha's administration promulgated a decree restoring his rights and entitlements as a head of international government. That's to say, retroactively making it valid after the court decision. Thank you.